Hello everyone, Sergio here from Speakable. Today we're going to go over ACTFL and WIDA estimates and speakable activities, but I will begin by asking the audience if you have used ACTFL or WIDA estimates in your speakable activities, if you know what the ACTFL and WIDA levels look for in a student's response or as assessment tools. So yeah, welcome to participate. The comment section is open in the different platforms that we're streaming on, like Twitter, StreamYard, or YouTube. So feel free to participate. I will answer your questions. All right. I see that more participants are joining. Okay. Good. All right. So let's begin with the content. I see that there are no initial questions, but it's time to focus on ACTFL and WIDA. So first, let's begin with why ACTFL and why WIDA? Why not other standards? Because there are plenty in the market, right? So first is our target. Like the majority of our customers are schools in the US, and thus that makes both ACTFL and WIDA levels probably the most sought after, right? However, they're not the only ones, and there are equivalences. So for example, you will see, if you check the WIDA page, for example, you will find equivalences between WIDA levels and the equivalents in the CEFR framework for languages. So, which is the Common European Framework for Languages, by the way, if you're not, you haven't heard of it. So, which is of course much more common for European languages, like say German. So, yeah, we because there are equivalences, you could technically calculate someone's CEFR level based on our WIDA estimates. And actual estimates, but we focus on those two because those are like the ones that have like a direct indication on exams and results for schools, and that's what we do. So first, let's talk about what they are, right? So let's begin with WIDA. WIDA is one standard that's specific to English language. So if you're creating a speakable activity for English, you will see this as a possibility in response cards. And if you're teaching another language, like say Spanish, Russian, French, you're going to be able to select the ACTFL standard, right? So one very common question I get is, okay, so my students, I have this on, and my students are responding to the question, but I disagree with the estimate, right? Okay, there are many things that go into the estimate. Number one, it's an estimate, right? So in order to really get someone's level certification, right, they need to go over like a series of tests, a series of interviews, a series of conversations to really determine that that's their level. But there are many more reasons like that. Number two is different standards or different estimation systems or grading systems have or prioritize different things, right? So for example, you might say, oh, my student has they responded to a question and it contained no mistakes, but still the estimation showed novice mid, for example. And that's because, okay, what was the question then, right? Because if the student made no mistakes, but the student's answer number one was 4 words long, and number two was the response to how are you, right? Then of course the fine, thank you, and you response will not be a lot of information, or it will not be enough to determine that the student is a higher level, right? So that's what, like, as part of ACTFL and WIDA standards, not only fluency and correctness is important, but so is sophistication and the type of vocabulary, tenses used, complexity of clauses. For example, if you have relative clauses in a sentence, that tends to give points, I'm going to say, in terms of language proficiency, more so than just a metric that focuses on fluency, or just a metric that focuses on not having any mistakes, but just the quantity and quality of sophisticated words that there are, or sophisticated relationships between sentences or clauses. So that's like one of the first things we need to determine is like, my student is so good, why did they get a novice mid? Well, because the question might have been a novice mid question, right? So the more complex your question, the more possibilities, or the more likely it is that your student will be able to get a score that is high. So we're going to have some practical examples for this, for both WIDA and ACTFL estimates. So we will be creating activities in both languages to see what this is all about. By the way, if you are interested in how these WIDA and ACTFL estimates work, then don't hesitate to go into those websites. I can put them in the comment section as well, because they have lots of cool resources that you can use to understand a bit better what the ACTFL or WIDA level does. But of course, since these are very standardized, most of the teachers watching this video will probably know what this is. So I'm not going to focus super deeply on that, but let's focus on how those are brought into Speakable and how you can use them, right? So first, let me go to my, let me start presenting my Speakable page. Okay, so I think you can see it here. Okay, I'm going to be going back and forth between this screen. Let me actually change the layout like this. Okay, between this screen and Speakable. So if you have a comment, I might not see it immediately, but I will go back to it when I can. So first, let's create an activity, and let's begin with WIDA. So I'm going to create an activity from scratch, and let's give it a cover. So WIDA, and I'm going to use this one. WIDA estimates on Speakable. All right. So let's begin by the preface with this. Let's say, okay, this is very important. The WIDA estimates only really work when we're talking about response cards, right? Repeat cards do not have this because it's just a matter of repeating something. Multiple choice, well, the student is not speaking, so this is not an option either. Media page, well, it's completely passive, so there's nothing to assess here. And these two are just builder options. I'm going to mention especially this one in the future, so you can also have that tool. But let's begin with let's start with the student action, which is the respond student action. So when you tweak the options here up in the feedback section, that's where you can turn on WIDA on or off, right? So everything else is on by default. And in this case, this is an English activity. So the only target language or the only feedback language is English, but I can set that up based on what my students' native language is. By the way, I can use that in the settings. I can change these general settings so that native languages, these are my students' native languages. Anyway, and this is English. Yeah, this is correct. Okay, so let's start by going why this is off. So this is going to be off by default, but you can turn it on at any point. So if you want your students and yourself to see the WIDA estimate in an activity, then remember to turn this this option on, right? Why is it off by default? Well, because not every single question in every single class, in every single activity or day needs to be an assessment, right? However, some of them should be. I recommend adding, a longer activity every now and then with WIDA or ACTFL turned on, so that your students can, so that your students and yourself can see the progress in their responses. So let's turn this on and let's test it. So let's start with a short prompt like, "How are you today?" Right? So something simple like that. And just with this very short prompt, I'm going to show you the different possible WIDA estimates based on different answers. So I'm going to start with a very clear-cut answer. It's just I'm going to answer this and nothing else, right? Because I'm going to be answering the question, I'm still going to pass it, So in the eyes of Speakable, it will be the objective met, or the goal met. But in terms of WIDA levels, there's going to be a different story. So let's take a look at this. I am good, thanks. There you go. Very, very simple. Let's submit it and see what it does. So, okay, your response is clear and concise, directly answering the teacher's prompt. I'm good, thanks. Effectively communicates your current state. Keep up the good work. It answers the prompt, right? Suggestion, I am well. Well, yeah, it's more I guess, a more formal way to communicate. But take a look at this. WIDA estimate. The student forms a simple sentence and communicates a basic idea in response to the prompt. However, the response is brief and does not demonstrate the ability to link ideas or use varied sentence structures. There are no errors, but the overall complexity, and this is a key word, of the response is limited, placing the student at the beginning level according to WIDA criteria. So 2, emerging. Of course, there isn't much to do. So let's try again, but this time with a more, complex answer. I am well, thank you. However, I started to feel a little bit under the weather recently, so I probably should go to the doctor. And you? All right. So that answer was, of course, a lot more sophisticated. So you're going to see a difference. However, your response was thoughtful and polite, but it includes more information than was asked. The teacher simply wanted to know, but okay, we're not focusing on this one, but list this one, expanding. So this is now a level 4. The student demonstrates extended discourse by providing a complete response that includes multiple ideas, such as their current well-being and a possible need to visit a doctor. They use varied sentence structures and effectively link ideas with conjunctions. However, so the response indicates an ability to discuss familiar topics and includes a hint of future tense. Probably should go to the doctor. Although the student showcases good language skills, there are still minor errors in complex grammar, which prevents a rating of level 5. So as you can see, this is a very specific reason, or a very specific in-depth view at why this is just a level 4, right? It could have been a level 5, but small mistakes could have prevented this. But still, this is fairly low compared to what can be done with a more complex answer. So if you think that your students have it in them to be a very high level according to WIDA or ACTFL, then make sure that the question that you decide to turn on WIDA level on is not this one. How are you today is so simple that will not really, expand on this. So let's ask a more difficult question. So what are the advantages of cycling in society? I'm going to just, because of this, I think this is probably something where I can talk a lot. So I am going to give you another 2, I guess, versions of this one, but one of them is going to be very correct and very complex, and the other one is going to be very complex as well, but more incorrect. So let's see how those WIDA level estimates change. So let's begin. Cycling in a society has many positive effects. Number 1, the individuals who practice the sport will be fitter than if they hadn't practiced the sport. But as a whole, as a society, cycling can take on the role of massive trend. No, you know what? I didn't like this one. I'm going to try again, but I'm going to extend this to 3 minutes. Okay, there you go. Cycling has many advantages, but one of them can be felt at an individual level, since the individuals who practice the sport tend to be fitter and live longer, happier lives. Collectively, cycling is also important because it can lead to a very efficient way to move around the city. Instead of paying for very expensive infrastructure like metro systems or buses, big roads, one could invest in cycling, and that would lead to a lot of people moving in a very quick way and a very cost-effective way. Another benefit of cycling is that it tends to move the economy a lot more in terms of urban planning. Like a person who is out and about in the pavement, in the sidewalk, tends to be more actively economically, more active economically, because they're going to be exposed to all the stores all the time and not be enclosed in a car that will let them to the parking lot, to the house, or that's it. A person who's out and about cycling tends to spend more in the local bakeries and local economy because they are there in front of them. Okay, that was a long response, but let's see. Even though my response was, complex and long, it was probably. I mean, no, I made many mistakes in terms of like and those little things, and you can see the whole answer here. And I still got an expanding. Yes. So why? Okay, because let's evaluate the complexity of this. So the student demonstrates the ability to engage in extended discourse on the advantages of cycling, linking various ideas together and providing multiple supporting points. The response shows a good use of varied sentence structures and somewhat complex grammar, including conditional phrases. One could invest in cycling. However, there are some minor errors in the sentence clarity and coherence, such as repetitive phrasing, tends to be, and slight awkwardness in a few areas, which prevent this from reaching level 5. Overall, the response indicates a proficient level of speaking, though it does not fully meet the criteria for the highest levels. And when you analyze the sentence, what was the most sophisticated thing I mentioned? Infrastructure, urban planning, which are intelligible in other languages. So even though this was a rather good response, yeah, if I say so myself, in terms of WIDA estimate, there isn't a lot of complexity to really determine that this is a level 5, right? Let's do the same thing, but now with lots of errors to see what the same type of more complex prompt would yield in terms of WIDA estimates when there are many mistakes around or in place. So cycling is good for society because people spend less time in traffic because they are not in traffic. And the bike is cheaper than the car, so that's also better for the economy of the country. And many people like to travel like this, so it's also fun. Okay, so that was a lot worse, right? So it still answers the question, but of course, in a more, I'm going to say, childish way with very little sophistication. And as you can see, even though I say essentially the same thing, but just without much sophistication, I get a different level. And this is the explanation why. So the student uses simple sentences to express ideas related to the advantages of cycling in society. They connect ideas with basic conjunctions because and provide relevant reasons. However, the sentences primarily focus on familiar topics and do not demonstrate the use of varied sentence structures or more complex grammar associated with level 4. So what basically this is it's telling us is that one prompt with two very different answers, even though they answer the same thing essentially, might have two very different levels according to how, or based on how complex the idea was to begin with, right? So this is one, I guess, use case for this. You can have, I mean, both sentences, both answers were good, right? Both answers were a passing score. As you saw, it was a good job for both answers, but it was a different WIDA level estimate. So what you could do with this is you could have the same prompt, right? And many different students, and you know how in one classroom you don't have, like, the students are realistically in different levels sometimes. Like some of them have this, like, some strengths that the other one doesn't have, or one person who communicates orally very well struggles when looking for more sophisticated or complexity or sophisticated language. Or the opposite is true. Someone who in written form is super correct and everything is fine, but when the time comes to speak, they struggle and they do not get their ideas out. Well, you could have the same question, the same prompt, and these two hypothetical students will answer two different things, and both will have a passing grade, right? So in terms of meeting the objective, which is saying what the advantages of this thing are in society, then both achieve the goal. However, if you want more details on what they are lacking, what they need to work on, and something like that, then turn on WIDA estimates. That way, if you have a very diverse group and not everyone's on the same level, you can get a better idea of where those weaknesses lie and how and what to do about it, because it will provide a very detailed feedback on what the, I guess, the justification for that level 4 or level 3 level was, even though again both passed the question with flying colors. So that is my, I guess, my first invitation to you is make sure that the question where you want the ACTFL or WIDA estimate is complex enough to draw an answer that justifies it. If it's just something like, "Hey, how are you?" then this would not be a good question to add the WIDA or ACTFL estimates to, right? But something where the students can go, well, can have a more verbose answer, then that would be a good selection for WIDA or ACTFL estimates. Now, something else you can do, right? So this has only affected for now the feedback, but again, as I mentioned before, both students received a good job passing score. But what if you want to go deeper and what if you want to evaluate the the sentence from the WIDA standards and not just be an addition to it on the side? Then you can do it using auto grading rubrics. So this is by default, the pass fail, the good job, keep trying screens are used. But if you want to have more control over what goes into the student's answer, then click on rubric based grading. By default, the Speakable one is going to be selected, but you can click on it, go to the library on the left, and select one that's available for everyone, which is the WIDA speaking rubric. So as you can see, it shows us the all the levels in linguistic complexity, language control, and vocabulary usage. But each of them is going to be now independently scored for a total of 18 points, right? So if you want your students to have a more thorough analysis in terms of WIDA standards, then go to the rubrics, select this rubric. I'm going to use this rubric for the rest of the activities in this card, and I'm going to use it now. So I did, what did I do? I didn't select it. There you go. Now it's selected. So now I'm going to say the same thing, go over the answers, but this time I'm going to be graded based on a rubric that is specifically targeted to provide WIDA levels in 3 different fields. So let's go. There are many advantages to cycling in a society. At an individual level, people who ride bikes to work and commute with bicycles tend to be fitter and spend less time in traffic, so they tend to be happier and less stressed as well. At a collective level, cycling provides a cleaner, cheaper solution to mobility compared to, say, highways or expensive subway systems. Also, cycling tends to keep the economy more active because cyclists are more in contact with businesses, local bakeries, clothing stores that they might otherwise skip had they been driving their cars. Because you're cocooned in a car, you tend not to do anything in between your work and your house or vice versa. But someone who's biking tends to be more active in society, in economy, because they are more exposed to these small businesses that might otherwise miss those customers if the civilian wasn't driving or walking. Sorry, wasn't cycling or walking. All right. So I hesitated a lot, and but I tried to include, kind of sophisticated clauses and things like that to see what my my level would be here. So let's see, and I got a 15 out of 18. And again, you can see what causes it. So in general, I got a 4, and this is the reason why. But if you zoom in, okay, linguistic complexity, very good. Language control, not so much. And this is why I was like, oh, sorry, the civilian wasn't driving. Sorry, wasn't cycling or walking. So these are like, I was not super in control of what I was saying, which is one important aspect of oral expression, right? Vocabulary usage, 6 out of 6. So the user shows mastery using sophisticated and precise vocabulary appropriate for various contexts. Phrases like cocooned in a car cleaner, cheaper solution to mobility and cycling tech reveal a strong command of the vocabulary. So as you can see, again, complexity is very important, right? And a big aspect of what goes into both WIDA and ACTFL estimates. So if you want not only to have this WIDA estimate, like the global estimate for the student in that case, you can have a very detailed view of what that answer specifically did towards my WIDA estimate. If I had been a little cleaner when it comes to my sentences, and if I had been less like, sorry, this one, or if I hadn't been correcting myself all the time, I would have probably gotten an 18 out of 18, which would have yielded a 6. Yes. A little bit more control, maybe a 5 out of 6 here, would have yielded a 5 here. And well, yeah, with this bridging one here, I got this for expanding. I can still check the rubric. So if I, as a student, if I want to see exactly what, let's say, for those overachievers that you have in your classroom, if they want to see what would have given them a 6 or any other type of score in whatever field, then they can open the rubric and try again. If you have that enabled, right? If you have the retries enabled, they can go into the rubric and really see and understand what would have made their answer a bit better. But anyway, so as you can see, this is like the global WIDA estimate and the WIDA rubric acting together to have a more complex, more nuanced way to grade your students. In this time, it was not like pass, fail, like good job or try again, but you got a 15 or 20, 83%. Right? And you know what? As a teacher, I agree 100% with my own answer. I hesitated a bunch, and some of my answers were a bit like, my wording was repetitive, and I could have been a lot cleaner. I did try to say, things like cocooned in a car, and those sophisticated expressions, in an effort to increase this one. And it looks like I did, because it was 6 out of 6 exceeding. But this was with this information, you already have a very good picture of what your student needs. So say if I was your student, then okay, this student is clearly not in need of more vocabulary. This is a person who needs to practice more, practice public speaking more. If you're in teaching AP, this would be a very good tool to assess those things, even without being in front of them, right? You can assign activities like these, let Speakable do the rating for you, and then you analyze, okay, what was it that my student lacked? What was it that my student did very well, so that I can continue tuning my lessons so that this person keeps improving, right? So yeah, this is the WIDA. Now, the ACTFL estimates are a little bit different. They are a little bit less numbers-based and more the definition-based. So let's go do that. So I'm going to create another activity. This one is going to be for ACTFL, so that we can focus on other languages. So of course, WIDA applies to English. And we're going to focus more on ACTFL, which is for other languages. Again, visit the ACTFL website and join us in November. We're going to be in the ACTFL conference in the convention in Philadelphia. So if you're there, if you'd like to know more about Speakable or ACTFL, then we will be there, and feel free to talk to us. I will be there myself personally. So if you want to chat or learn more about the system, let us know. So anyway, plug over. Let me go back to creating this activity. I like this ACTFL pyramid. I like this one, which already shows us the different levels that there are. And this is going to be like ACTFL estimates, right? And again, on Speakable. Okay, correct. All right, now let's create the content for this one again. Oh, I made a mistake. I forgot to change it to a different language. So let me change it to, let's do Spanish. Let's do Spanish, and my students' native languages are these. Let's add English to the mix, and this is not going to be English. This is going to be world languages. Okay, I forgot to change this in the settings at first, but now it is fine, right? Let me make sure that it is by opening a response card and checking the language. It is indeed in Spanish. Okay, so let's change the feedback to ACTFL. Let's turn this on again. And we're going to do the same thing, but I'm going to show you in different languages what the levels would entail. So again, let's start simple with a question like, ¿Cómo estás hoy? And I'm going to answer. Estoy muy bien, gracias. ¿Y tú? All right, short answer, to the point. Probably going to get no, for sure I'm going to get a passing score. There you go. It is. Good job. But according to this, even though there were 0 mistakes in my answer, I'm still getting a novice mid. Okay. The student's response is limited to a memorized phrase structure. While they can respond appropriately to the question with a short phrase, their use of language does not extend beyond a simple exchange. They show no variation in the sentence structure or complexity, which aligns to the novice mid-level, where simple phrases are used in familiar contexts. Therefore, the correct level is novice mid. And I agree. There were no mistakes, but estoy muy bien, gracias. This is very much, their second class ever, if not the first. So even if this is perfectly fine, it is not very advanced, right? So I am right here. So let's change the prompt to something that force the students to think a bit more and to speak in a more complex way. So I don't know. I did cycling before. Let's do something else. Like, ¿cuáles son los parámetros más importantes parámetros más importantes a la hora de tomar una fotografía? Okay, I'm getting into photography now for some reason. I don't know. But let's do something like this. Let me add the accents just to be super correct. Let me open my question properly as well. Shift option, there you go. And then ¿cuáles parámetros needs an accent? I always forget which ones are the accents. Okay, cool. Now that my answer is correct, let me double check. ACTFL is indeed turned on. And I'm leaving this in English just so that everyone knows. But of course, remember, this is not an English class. I can have the feedback be in a different, in the language that we're teaching, in this case, Spanish. But I'm leaving it in English so that we can, all see what it would look like even if you don't speak Spanish. So of course I am going to speak in Spanish for this one, because I need to show you what the I guess the different levels are. So I'm going to answer to this twice, one in a very simple way and another one with more nuance. So los parámetros más importantes para tomar una foto son composición, color, luz y rango focal, porque con estos parámetros se puede definir bien la composición de la foto y si el sujeto de la foto está en foco y si la foto es de buena calidad. Okay, that was I answered the question successfully, I guess, but it is not particularly sophisticated, right? And it shows intermediate mid. The student response demonstrates an ability to create sentences and communicate on a topic, photography, using appropriate vocabulary and some complexity. The responses include a list of parameters, composición, color, luz, blanco, and explains their significance in a coherent manner. However, the sentence structure remains relatively simple, and the response does not delve into past or future tenses for more complex ideas, which is characteristic of the intermediate mid rather than advanced levels. So I agree. This was a fairly good answer, and it's correct. Like, there were no mistakes, as you can see. There were no mistakes at all. But still, the relative simplicity of this answer does not yield a higher level. So let me do my best and try another answer here, so that we get a higher level. So let me think of the answer a bit. Los parámetros más importantes a la hora de tomar una fotografía son la luz. Con una correcta exposición del sujeto se puede jugar con las sombras y lograr una foto más enigmática. El rango focal. Con el rango focal se puede determinar cuántos objetos están en foco, si solamente el sujeto o si el fondo sobre el sujeto, y eso nos da una mucha más profundidad en la foto. Otro parámetro importante es el color. Diferentes simulaciones en fotografía digital o en fotografía análoga nos permiten tener una temperatura de color diferente que nos permite expresar una u otra cosa dependiendo de la intención del fotógrafo. Finalmente, lo más importante es la composición. Si uno está buscando alguna simetría o algún contraste específico entre figuras, colores, eso es lo que más importa a la hora de tomar una fotografía y que su impacto sea mayor. Okay, it was kind of like a boring answer, cookie cutter kind of thing when someone wants to sound more verbose, but I tried my best to sound, or to include complex words here and there, complicated clauses, advanced sentences. And as you can see, I said the same thing pretty much. Even I made mistakes this time, but still, I'm giving a way higher score. Yeah, ACTFL estimate of advanced high. So the student's response demonstrates a high command of vocabulary and grammar, discussing complex concepts related to photography, such as light, focal range, color, temperature, and composition. The use of varied sentence structures and the ability to connect ideas cohesively indicate proficiency in expressing thoughts in detail and depth. The student effectively employs different present and future aspects of language while discussing abstract elements of photography, which aligns closely with the advanced high-level criteria. So I think that was pretty, salient. The answer was, in reality, kind of the same. I say basically the same things. I said that the principal and main aspects of good photography are this, and that in both answers. But I was, a little bit more verbose, like deliberately, or deliberate actually. And, I wanted to show off basically. And that's what the advanced high would need, right? Showing off. So again, the same passing score for two very different answers in terms of complexity will be like good job, but of course the ACTFL estimate would be very different. So again, you can use this in a context where multiple students have multiple different proficiency levels. So you can evaluate where your students are even within one classroom in one level. They're not going to be the same place, and this will help you out, like with identifying this. This is also a good way to allow your overachievers to do better. So if you have one of those, like a question that will allow them to show off a little bit, it would be, that's a good candidate to turn on the ACTFL estimate feature in the auto grading section here. Yeah, so that's another way you can use the ACTFL levels. Just like before, I'm going to show you the rubrics, but this time I am going to create one, right? So before I was simply using the WIDA rubric that I found here in the library, but this time I'm going to show you how to use rubrics to to create your own. And again, go back to ACTFL. So I'm not just ACTFL. Actually, let me go one further. So if you are watching this video and or this seminar or this webinar right now, and you're not in the US and you're more in line with, say, the Common European Framework for Languages, then you can create one yourself, right? That's not one way we have right now, because again, mostly our client base needs ACTFL and WIDA. But if you're curious as to how to assess someone based on the CFR, then you can do this here. So I'm going to say, hey, I need a rubric that will evaluate a student's level according to the CEFR proficiency scale. And I'm going to start there. I'm going to generate the rubric and I'm going to refine it later. So this is one thing I can do. And again, if you're curious, you can do whatever you want with rubrics. Stepping away from this topic, if you're teaching a specific topic, you like say a specific tense, you can zoom in into that tense and evaluate that specifically. If you want to, if you're not teaching languages, you could use rubrics to focus on, say, medical knowledge if you want. But anyway, this is what the AI gave me as a CEFR proficiency evaluation rubric. and linguistic range and accuracy, coherence and cohesion, interaction and fluency. So, and it gives me the A, B, and C levels for each of them, which are, of course, the CEFR levels, right? And you can keep refining it. You can tell, for example, please divide each level in two. For example, instead of having one score for both A1 and A2, have A1, A2, B1, B2, C1 and C2 separate levels, right? And I can update that so that it applies to the rubric, and I can have it, one by one. If you want a lot of detail, you can do that. That's a way to refine your rubric in a way that makes sense. Of course, you can also do it manually. So I did it like this, but I just told the AI what I want, and this is what I got, right? So using AI is, I guess, quicker, right? And now it changed the total amount of points. So now I have a total of 15 points, and I can use the CFR proficiency evaluation rubric in a detailed way. You know what? I'm actually going to save this one. I really like this. So let's use this rubric. Let's apply it to this card. And again, it's today's topic. We started with ACTFL and WIDA, but it could be way more than that. So let me answer the same. You know what? Let's, for the sake of simplicity or variety, let's change the topic. Let's talk about ¿cuál fue la importancia de la domesticación de los perros? Okay, so now I'm changing topics. Before it was cycling, then it was photography, then it's dogs. That's a hint of what I tend to like. So there you go. But anyway, so let's do this. I'm going to answer. This is in Spanish. Yes, so I'm going to answer this. So, la domesticación de los perros hace 10,000 años nos trajo muchos cambios como sociedad. Por un lado, tener perros guardianes le permitió a los humanos dormir más tiempo y con mejor calidad de sueño, lo que nos llevó a solucionar problemas más complejos, desarrollando nuestra capacidad cerebral de una manera más elaborada. Por otro lado, también fueron un apoyo espiritual y emocional que unió a las sociedades más en años recientes. Hoy en día, una sociedad sin perros es inconcebible, o se vería una sociedad completamente diferente a como sería sin perros. Okay, again, I found this answer in my pocket, basically, but and it was not particularly fluent, not particularly good, but it still might be long enough for a good assessment of this level. I think I still have this as ACTFL on, so you will still see the ACTFL estimate here, advanced high, yeah. But my rubric was more aligned to the ECFR. As you can see, I got a C1, C1, C1 in all of them. I agree with this. Even though it was complex and whatever, it did not show, I'm going to say the language command or control that would have given me a 15 out of 15. This is very strict. Teachers know that getting a C2 is extremely hard. Look, I am a native Spanish speaker, so in theory, I should be getting a C2 consistently. But it is so difficult to string together a complex enough sentence with enough clarity and cohesion to entail a 15 out of 15, like in this case, that you can use this, but let your students know, like, if they get a 12 out of 15, this is a fantastic score regardless, right? So this is going to be super strict. So maybe if you're using the like rubrics like this in such a detailed way, it is going to look for a lot of complexity. So don't let your students be discouraged with this. But of course, getting a C2 is very, very hard. So with one 49-second answer, this is a pretty close estimation that you will get for both ACTFL, WIDA, and also for CFR, like was the case of this rubric. Again, I can see the rubric here. So yes, that's basically what I wanted to show you. Focus on the different level estimations and ways that we can integrate that into our speakable activities. This was I guess a webinar for users who have been using Speakable for a long time, or or veterans, because these tend to be fields that advanced users tend to tweak. However, if you're a beginner, don't feel intimidated by this. Just tell the AI what you want in terms of the rubric and refine it. You can still experiment with it and test it so that it gets closer to what you feel is the ideal way to evaluate your students. So there you go. WIDA and ACTFL and bonus CEFR estimates thrown into the mix. Good ways to use them, and how, let's say, how that feedback will allow you to tweak your future lessons with them based on what you identify your students need or what they are doing very well. So yeah, that's the webinar for today. I wanted to ask you if you had any questions, comments. In the meantime, while you write your questions and comments, let me add this little message here. Remember, if you are already using Speakable, but maybe you only have the free account or the Teacher Pro, but some of the features like the rubrics I'm just talking about, or the estimates are they are for organizations, and you'd like to know to test these out, then let me know. We can arrange a pilot program for your school so that you can try out these features and see if they fit in with the way you grade your students, if they are they represent a good value proposition for you, and we can arrange something like that. So if you are interested in a pilot, let me know, or anyone in the team know. We can also go to a website and let us know, hey, I want a pilot. There's a field for that, and we can focus on that. Now, let me finish with, because I see no questions here, let me finish with the an invitation. Again, we're going to be, like, relevant to this topic, ACTFL. We're going to be in the ACTFL conference in late November in Philadelphia. So if you are around, feel free to let us know. And where we're going to be in the stand. So yeah, feel free to let us know. Tracy, I'd be interested in trying pilot program. Of course, yeah. I have your name now, so I'm going to be contacting you. Or maybe not me, but Santiago, one of the two. We're going to be contacting you to see, how many students you have, what type of I guess activities you'd like to make, and so that we can, tweak your pilot for all the users that need it with you. So yes, Tracy, I will get in contact with you. And the final invitation is, we're going to have more webinars scheduled for the following days. So every day at this time. So it's going to be 4:30 Central, 5:30 Eastern. And we're going to have one tomorrow for how to tune Speakable for different audiences in terms of age. So how to tweak Speakable activities for younger audiences and older students. And we're probably going to have more. We haven't defined this, we haven't published them, but we're going to have more on every day of the week. So we're going to have one on the AI creator as well, how to use it correctly and what the best prompts are. We're going to revisit the rubrics like we did today. And we're going to revisit the comprehension and fluency ones as well, because they were very popular, and there were some teachers that wanted to take that because they missed the last one. So yes, Tracy, I'm going to get back to you on the pilot program. And everyone, thank you very much for attending, for your participation, and let us know if you have any questions. Our website is speakable.io. There you will find us. So if you have any questions, any comments, any requests for pilots, let us know. We'll solve them as soon as we can. Anyway, thank you very much, and I hope you have a great rest of the day. Have a good one.